really interesting was that I could feel the bowls in particular better than I could hear them. So I got really intrigued and was like, what is this? A week later, I got some hearing aids. So it was all sort of in amongst that time, and I started hearing again. And I was listening to some music, and what Backstreet Boys was one of them. And I ended up singing Backstreet Boys at the top of my lungs at this yoga studio. I thought I was by myself. And the sound healer happened to be there running a private session. He was like, oh, you've got a voice. You should learn to sing. So he gave me a couple of sessions, and I started omming with crystal bowls, and then I started working with him one-on-one, and I thought I was going in for a 2-hour sound healing, and it turned out to be a breathwork session. So I got introduced to breathwork without even knowing what breathwork was. And the most amazing thing, and this is why I tell the back of that story, was that I used to get panic attacks and really bad anxiety. And I never had an anxiety attack again after I started breathing. So it was almost like something pivotal changed. The second thing that I found really interesting was that at the end of the breathwork session, and I suppose we'll go into a little bit about what breathwork is, at the end of the session, I could hear clearly for about 5 minutes, even without the hearing aids. And I knew at that point that my hearing deficiency was something that I had created with my own belief systems in my own head. And so that began the unraveling of the belief systems that had held me back. And then one thing led to another. I started sound healing, started rebirthing people, and I ended up moving to Bali and working for the Pyramids of Chi, which has been such a privilege. And I feel very humbled to share this work, because I know how much it's changed my life. Yeah.
That's an incredible story. And the fact that you're teaching now, that's kind of part of your soul purpose, because originally you were a teacher as well.
Yeah. I was a high school teacher before I became a yoga teacher. The skills don't transfer, by the way, which is bizarre. No, it was the hardest thing to learn, to teach yoga.
That's really interesting. The skills might not transfer, but certainly that soul purpose to come into this world and to teach others. And I'm getting goosies while I'm saying that. You can never run away from your soul purpose, can you?
Nope. The universe keeps prodding you and pushing you in the right direction to make sure that you're right on that path. And if you stray, it's okay to a point. Don't you agree?
To a point.
To a point.
That's right. So, we're getting kind of to that, that understanding of, what is, breath work or rebirthing breath work. I mean, that all sounds a little bit weird to people who've never heard that before, and maybe a little bit scary, Can you lead us through what that actually means?
Yeah, of course. It's when I first started breathing, I didn't tell anyone that I was doing breath work for a good year, because I thought it was different, and it's very it's newer, let's just say that. But what it is a conscious connected breathing. It's almost like the opposite of pranayama. So for those of us who know what pranayama is, pranayama is breath control. So it's using the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles of the ribs to control the breath in and that breath out. And so we're learning to expand our lungs by using control. Breath work is the opposite. Instead of controlling the breath, we're actually allowing the diaphragm to relax. So it's a little bit like this. If I breathe in and then I just let my muscles that control the breathing mechanism go, the breath naturally just wants to be released. It's like the pressure of the body versus the pressure of the outside world. So pressure wants to sort of equalize. So because of that, the breath work is designed to be conscious connected breathing. So we're connecting the breath in to the breath out and the breath out to the breath in. And so it's really powerful on a physical level because it, you know, it starts to expand and stretch the muscles around the lungs, which keep us feeling tight and constricted. It's almost like we have this cage around our heart that stops us from really experiencing, feeling, being in life. And once we start to breathe in these ways, pranayama does a similar thing. It's just a very different representation in the body. When we start breathing freely, it becomes open, and then there's a whole heap of energetic shifts that take place as well. So when we breathe in this way for a long period of time, the body starts to tingle, energy starts to move in the body. You know exactly what that's like. What's that been like for you, actually? I'd love to ask you that question.
Oh, I'm captivated with breath work, and partly because I know what comes after doing a session. It's like you tap into all the magic. It's like someone has loosened that lid. You know when you've got a jar and you can't open the lid, and you say to someone else, "Oh, can you open it?" And they just kind of crack it for you. They give it back to you, and then it just opens, and you're like, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah.
That is what breath work is like. And you know, when you do it on your own, you can be lazy, and you don't show up. You know, and that was the glorious thing about booking in and knowing that I was going to show up. It was in my diary. School holidays, unfortunately, really kind of throw spanners in works, but there was also that little reward that you knew that I knew that after I'd done that session, magic unfolded for me for days and days afterwards. Things I could manifest so easily and effortlessly. It was like when you're inviting the breath in, you're inviting source energy in, and you become one with being able to do anything. And you know, that is the exciting magic in all of this, is that we really do think, oh, breathing, don't we just breathe automatically? But I do believe that with the type of society we're living in, we're actually not breathing, and we're not. So, you know, that comes to, you know, who is breathwork really for, Karina?
Everyone. Everyone. There's a few modifications that we need to make for people who are on medication for bipolar, schizophrenia. Sometimes even there's just a very there's care that we need to take when it comes to epilepsy as well. But other than that, if you've got lungs, then you can breathe. And you know, I believe that we all have the capacity to be our best self. And just like you said about the, you know, the cracking off of the jar, and sometimes we just need guidance on how to crack the top of our own jar. And I suppose it's also really hard to describe like the benefits of breath work, especially because I've been doing it for a couple of years now. And it's hard to describe the benefits of breath work when it's so diverse and it's different for everyone. But I can very much relate to you and the experience of having like manifestations land like this, and confidence to make decisions that will change the course of my life, you know, like stepping away from things that are not in alignment to step into things that are. Yeah.
So, you know, when you're working with clients, you know, I guess that, you know, why are they coming to you to do breath work? What is their motivation or their intention to set aside time to do it?
There's many different ones, I would say. I think so I work both online and also face to face. So, and there's really no difference between the two, which I find really interesting. Before COVID, I wasn't doing any breathwork online, but people come. I've had one guy come to improve his surfing, And he kept coming back because he found other benefits. I had another woman who has come to let go of, you know, some pretty deep trauma that's happened for her. And we're releasing it slowly over the course of sessions together. And it's just been so powerful to watch her like literally unfold, unfurl. It's like, I think I described the group as the ever unfolding rose. Or the ever unfolding flower, and the group of the awakened heart, that is. And I just feel that this is what happens when we start to move the energy within. Like, we experience life, we have a reaction to that experience of life. And if we don't give ourselves permission to feel that reaction or response or emotion, especially like sadness or anger, and as children, we never knew how to process those emotions. So if we were told to be quiet or to shut up or don't feel that or whatever, then we got really used to tucking it away and putting it down somewhere deep inside us. And, you know, the body holds so much information. And when we breathe in this way, it starts to move things in conscious and also in the subconscious. And I think that's the most powerful thing, is that there's a lot that's actually moving in the subconscious when we breathe. There was one thing that I noticed, I think it was after my 4th session. And this is a bit of a personal story. So I was talking with a girlfriend of mine, and she was sharing, you know, don't you ever get embarrassed when you go on a first date or something like that? And I just thought to myself, and I think I'd been on a few dates, and I thought to myself, no, I don't feel like that anymore, but I used to. And so I wasn't until I was put in situations where I really noticed how much change took place. And that was only after, 4 sessions. It was pretty massive.
It's amazing how quickly things can start to shift and change. Sometimes we don't really notice it until someone draws our attention to it. Now, I just wanted to read this. It's so beautiful. It's actually one of your quotes. And it says, when you remember that at your very core, you are love, then the healing can take place from the inside out. Like a light that bursts the layers of the self open wide, that cracks and breaks the cages we have built around ourselves for protection. The breath brings you back to love. Then you remember and embody that there is actually nothing to protect and nothing to heal, because you are love. I read that, I get goosies. It's the very core of my message, that we are, to shift everything over back to love. And, it's just a beautiful, beautiful quote. Wanted to share it with everyone.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It is absolutely true. And the amount of times that I see it in people, and there's this smile on their face, there's this, and they're in the middle of a session and they're breathing, and they're just like breathing with this great big smile on their face. And there is a remembering of the truth. When the mind is really still, we have access to the deep knowing within us that we are actually greater than body and happenings around us, that we are so much more than that we are actually source, energy, love. And just as the quote says, when you remember that, a lot falls away. We don't need to be, healing ourselves all the time. Sorry, go.
Oh no, I was just going back to, and that, it changes people's lives. It was really interesting doing the sessions with you, and it wasn't a group session. And so, we all needed to get comfortable. So we're actually all zooming in from our bedrooms. Karina would then sort of put the camera on you while you were doing your breathing. And it was really interesting, even though you're there consciously with the intention to breathe, how many times during that session you would say, keep breathing, and how we go back to holding our breath. What's that about?
I'm starting to notice that there's two aspects to that. And I'm going to start with the first aspect, which is like in our normal everyday life, it's a stress response to hold our breath. So when we are in very mild states of stress to exceeding states of stress, it's really common for people to not breathe. And if you're in a constant state of stress for a lot of your life, which most of us were pre-COVID, and probably even still now, it's a little bit like if you don't stretch your muscles, they're going to get tight. And same with the breathing mechanism, so the intercostal muscles between the ribs and the diaphragm. And when that becomes tight, then we don't have the capacity to breathe deeply, which is, as you said before, like our birthright and our prana and our energy and our life force. It's the connection to spirit. So now I've just spaced. Where was I going with that?
Well, we're just talking about the
That's right, the
idiosyncrasy of people holding their breath, even though that you've booked in for a class to do breath work and you're there doing the breathing session, you find yourself holding breath.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm like, hang on a second, I'm going somewhere with that. So the other reason why we stop breathing in a breathwork practice is sometimes we go so deep, the mind is so still that we go into this deep space of theta brainwave, which is just before you fall asleep, that nothingness space. And it's in there where all the magic happens. It's in there where we start to access, the intelligence of our soul and our spirit. And so I, as a facilitator, need to be really mindful and aware of when it's mind stuff and also when it's experiencing the self and experiencing that sense of spaciousness. So it's almost like two polarities, right? Like stress response versus complete spaciousness. And we stop breathing at both points. So the amount of things that can happen.
Absolutely. And so, Karina, when we're doing breath work, is it a mouth thing? Is it a nose thing? Is there a difference? Does it matter?
Yes, it does. Well, I don't know if it matters, but there is a difference. What I'm trained in is something called rebirthing breathwork, which is a style or a technique that was created by one of the founding leaders of breathwork, his name's Leonard Orr. He passed away last year. And it is through the nose, so it's in and out through the nose, and nose breathing sparks or amplifies, if you will, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and restore and repair. It's the restful part of us that starts to come alive and come awake. When you mouth breathe, not only actually, I'm just going to say this as well, when you nose breathe, you're targeting your third eye. So there's an opening of the sinuses that also targets into the third eye. And when you breathe in this way, there's often a release of DMT, which is the active ingredient in the ayahuasca and the plant medicines. And we're not going to go into that too much. But when you breathe through your mouth, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze. And so it's purposeful, but it does a different thing. So that will be much more cathartic. Often there's screaming or shouting. Depends on the facilitator as to how gentle they create the space. But it's from my experience of the various mouth breathing techniques, which is biodynamic and breath of bliss, and these are the main schools. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but what they do is activate the sympathetic response to bring emotions and events to the surface to then be healed. So it does exactly the same thing. It's just that is more yang and rebirthing is a little bit more yin. So it's like the mouth breathing is like Ashtanga and rebirthing is like yin yoga, if you could explain it like that.
So for people who aren't familiar with the yin and the yang, can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yep. I'm afraid if there are any mouth breathers out there, I mouth breathe as well occasionally. It's my own practice, but it's a little bit more aggressive. Let's say that. I don't want to say that because it's not, it is still a really amazing form of healing. It's just not as gentle and as graceful and as profound, and sometimes with rebirthing, because it stimulates the parasympathetic, we're actually accessing those deep states of love and peace and connectedness to ourself through breathing through the nose. So, and sometimes the nose blocks up during a session because there's tears and we have to mouth breathe, and thank God for that. And it's just as valuable. Yeah.
Karina, I'm really curious. You know, the Wim Hof breathing technique is starting to take off worldwide. And I guess it's, you know, getting a lot of people who are mainstream into the idea of activating breath. You know, where does this sit along that line of things? Because, you know, it's interesting to see how that movement is really growing. And is it benefiting your way of doing it, like bringing breath work as a mainstream activity?
Great question. Great question. He has done fantastic with getting it into the mainstream, and it was probably about the same time as the rise of Wim Hof that I started telling people about rebirthing, because it's something that's not commonly spoke about. It's old. It's, you know, it's very ancient. This is a medicine that we've been using for centuries and centuries. What Wim Hof has done is he's one of, again, he's another founder of breathwork, and he has used quite an aggressive breath to bring the body into homeostasis and parasympathetic nervous system. So he's also using parasympathetic. His sessions are much shorter, and he is, I suppose the difference is that it's just much more aggressive in the approach, and it's very different in terms of a session. I've actually not received a session of Wim Hof from anybody, so I can't really speak on too much on that because I haven't really experienced that. I've done some of his stuff on his app, which is awesome. And the way I kind of see it is I have a limited capacity for how much I can work with people, and he is doing it in a way that's accessible to the whole world. So I say go for it. If that's the first port of call for somebody to start breath work, then yeah, this is amazing.
Well, I know that, you know, my beloved is a man of science, and, you know, he thought that was a bit weird. I actually booked him into a Wim Hof session down in Sydney and sent my boys as well. And they weren't that impressed. They thought that was weird. And so, you know, but came back really open and really intrigued and kind of really understanding the benefits of actually dedicating some time to actually just lying down and doing the breathing. So they've been using the app, and I find it really interesting that, you know, I am considered to be a little bit off on one side of the spectrum doing my type of breath work, but it all leads to the same thing about, you know, changing the alkaline acidity balance within the body and promoting physical health, but also, you know, more oxygen into the brain. It's always a good idea.
Completely. And the more oxygen in the body, the better off the body is. And the more science is meeting spirituality, the more we're coming into connection between this brain body experience. And I just yesterday actually had a sensation in my body. I was having my space held by somebody, and I had this sensation in my body, and a memory literally come out of the sensation in my body and show me this, like, just almost like a movie screen. And I opened my eyes and said to the woman, that our memory is stored in our body. And she said, yes, it is. And it's absolutely true. So the science is coming together with the physical body is meeting. Hold on. The more we get to know the physical body, the more we get to know ourselves. I think it comes down to that. Breathwork is one of the gateways.
And I'm enjoying having, you know, watching the evolution of what is considered perhaps a little bit woo-woo to some, you know, scientists have been studying what he's doing, and it's kind of merging the two things together and blending it, so it's sort of becoming a little bit more, you know, the woo-woo is becoming a little bit more mainstream, and like you said, you know, easier to tell people about what you're doing and not sounding like, well, yes, well, we're breathing every day, but we're not doing it with intention, with purpose, with a consciousness to achieve an outcome. Now, Karina, I know that I'd kind of sussed you out to see if you would take the group through something, you know, whether it's a meditation or some breath work or some sound healing. Are you up for that tonight?
I am.
Fabulous.
Very much so. So how much time do I have? Just let me
Okay. Well, what I'm going to, it's 7:30 now, and we do always allow some question time at the end. So there are some, I'll just check the chat box because there's some people who've actually popped something in the chat box that's active at the moment. The sound is good. Someone needs to switch their camera. The link's been giving someone issues. Okay, so I think, okay, super. I think that we're good to go. A maximum of, say, 15 minutes, and then that will allow us to do Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
And then we've got a lucky draw, and we don't just have one prize, we've got 5 prizes. So I love it when my guests are generous. It's a feel-good feeling for us all. So I'm going to turn my sound down and let you go for it.
Okay, so what I'm going to get you all to do, you can either lie down or you can stay seated. Just make sure you can hear me. And find a comfortable space to be in, whether or not that's seated or whether that's lying down. If you're seated, sometimes it's really nice to ground your feet down into the earth. So this evening we're going to do a meditation into a breathwork practice. And this will be really, really gentle. You may feel tingling in your hands or your feet, or perhaps in your lips. You may feel tingling all over your body. Just know that this is really normal. And if you decide that the breathwork isn't for you, then you don't have to do it. You are welcome just to breathe in for the count of 4 and breathe out for the count of 4, which is a pranayamic practice. So as I demonstrated earlier, the breath, and you may need to open your eyes to just see what I do. You breathe in, maybe 60, 70, 80%, and then you just allow the diaphragm to relax. And we'll get to this in a minute. I'm going to guide us into a meditation first. You breathe in and you relax. Breathing in and relax. Breathing in and relax. And so on. And the pace will end up being a little bit quicker, so I'll demonstrate that really quickly. And we're connecting the breath, so there's no pause at the top of the breath, no pause at the bottom of the breath. We're just breathing, almost like we're breathing in a circle or a cycle. There's no stopping at the breath. And what we'll do is we'll do, actually that will come as I do the meditation. So as you are ready, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you haven't done so already. And just drop your attention and your awareness down and in. And down and in again. As though you're taking the seat in the very center of your body, surrounded by the cells of your being. If this is a little hard, just taking a few steps beneath the boundary of your skin. And you may notice different sensations on the inside of your body that perhaps you have been avoiding. Perhaps there are feelings present. We're not doing anything with those feelings, we're just allowing them to be there. And here's the most important piece, acknowledging their presence. I feel you, I see you. I invite you to soften around those parts that feel dense and heavy. And keep acknowledging their presence. I see you, I feel you. And perhaps there is a response that takes place in your body. Perhaps you can notice the cells around the space full of sensation soften and widen. Perhaps you can notice the sensations as they begin to dissolve. And perhaps you can notice as well that there are spaces within you that are vast and wide and peaceful and spacious. Let's bring your attention, your awareness into those parts of you. You might like to bring your hand over the parts of you where you feel wide and open. And just acknowledging those spacious parts of you. I see you. I feel you. I hear you. Almost like we are astronauts taking off into outer space, but instead, summernauts taking off into the interior of the body and exploring the vast collection of cells that are made of stardust. The wonder of our inner being. And perhaps it is in this moment that you can remember. You can remember beyond stress, tension, fear. You can remember beyond anger, doubt. You can remember beyond any sensation or experience that is happening within your life, and you can let that go. To that, we'll breathe in. Take a long, slow, deep breath in. Hold and pause and gather, collect anything that you're holding on to, and then open your mouth and let it go. Sigh it out. I'm going to breathe twice more like that. Breathing in. Open mouth and sigh it out. One more. Breathing in. And sighing out. Perhaps you can see beyond what you were holding on to, and that you can remember. The parts of you remember that you are love. That your natural state of being is peacefulness. That you are worthy and that you are enough just as you are. There is a knowing there that you are, that this is true. Cultivating that experience of love through the breath. I'm going to do 2 rounds of 20 breaths or thereabouts. You might like to bring your hands to your heart just to feel the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. You're going to breathe in and out through your nose, so there's no opening of your lips. Breathing in. And then drop the breath. Breathing in. Drop the breath. Breathing in. Drop your breath. Breathing in. Drop your breath. Breathing in. Drop your breath. Breathing in. Drop. Breathing in. Drop. Breathing in. Drop your breath. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing in. 5 more. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing in. Breathing in. This time you'll take a full breath in. You'll hold and pause at the top of the breath. We'll hold for 3, for 2, for 1. Open your mouth this time. Let the breath go. Sigh it out. Holding the breath at the bottom. Holding for 3, 2, 1. Return back to a natural flow of breath. In the second round, I'm going to invite you to explore taking a little bit of a deeper breath. And if you're feeling that there are tingling sensations that are quite strong or heightened sensations in your body, you might like to slow your breath down and not follow the click. And the click is the breath out. So you can go at your own pace just to feel and experience the breath and at its best for you. When you're ready, breathing in. 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 Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe in. Last few, breathe in. Breathe in. Last one, breathing in. Hold your breath at the top. Open your mouth and let it go, sigh it out. Hold your breath at the bottom. Return back to a natural flow of breath. And you may notice a really beautiful, very subtle shift in your energetic field, like a pulsing or a vibrating of the spaces between your cells. Perhaps you can notice the fizzing of your energetic body like champagne bubbles. Perhaps there is heightened sensation in parts of you that have come alive, and that's okay. I acknowledge you, I see you, I feel you, as though you're speaking to a child, acknowledging the parts of you to come together, to be fully whole. Your body is not to be feared, but to be loved deeply, unconditionally, just as it is. I invite you to breathe into where you feel the sensation. Just a few sighs. Take a deep breath in. Sigh it out. One more deep breath. I invite you now to invite in a few words of affirmation, some words of love into this spaciousness that you've cultivated within yourself. I am worthy. I am enough. I am loved. I am lovable. I belong. I am connected. I am never alone. We are one. One last deep breath. If you're lying down, I invite you to bring your hands to your heart if they're not already there. If you're sitting up, I invite you to bring your hands to prayer. Thanking yourself for this practice and gratitude for this moment. To all the teachers who came before us, and to the greatest teacher of them all, that which is the self. Namaste.
I'm getting back to my video. It's starting. Oh, there it goes. Oh, Karina, so much bliss. And one of the most beautiful things at the end, you know, when we bring our hands together, we are essentially connecting the two hemispheres of the brain, and we're integrating all that beautiful work into the body. So thank you so much. I feel incredibly blissed out and blessed for that. A little bit buzzy and trying to get back into the body.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you.
That's actually, this is probably a good thing to do. Just shake.
Yes.
Come back to the body, shake your hands, shake your head, shrug your shoulders a few times, shimmy, and there we go. Actually, that feels better. Me too. Because when I with you, it's like woo.
Yes, and it is. Sometimes you don't want to leave that beautiful space. You just want to linger in it longer because, you know, once you're there, it's kind of that soaring feel. So I'm going to find my spectacles. Ladies, please feel free to hop into the chat box and put your questions in there for Karina. I know that we're on Facebook as well. I'm not on Facebook to answer those questions there, but Karina might hop in if you're commenting. Karina might hop in and answer those later. But we're going to hop on here onto this chat box and see what's coming up. Oh, Chelsea's in the bath watching.
I love that.
Stephanie says it's amazing to get a taste of what is involved and what it feels like. And people take breath for granted, and we don't really truly access the full potential of it. So it's been wonderful to be able to give that as an opportunity to people to have a taste of what it's really like.
Yeah.
Sarah says, beautiful, thank you. Lisa's saying thank you. Vipki's saying sensational, thank you, namaste. Vana's saying, wow, thank you so much. Linda's saying, I found the breathing quick and speeding up. What is the purpose of this shallow style of breathing?
I love this question. I love this question. Thank you for asking it. So at the beginning of a breath practice, it feels like it's shallow breathing, but what we're actually doing is slowly starting to wake up the breath mechanism, and what you'll find is you'll be able to breathe deeper and more full. So I was breathing nearly to 100%. And so It feels like shallow breathing to begin, but it's not actually. It's just because we're connecting the breaths that it feels like it's shallow breathing. And if we were in a one-on-one, even if you were online, I would probably modify that a little bit so that it felt a little bit more spacious. But that's generally the pace that we breathe. It's almost like a metronome, if you will. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Linda. Yeah. Hope that answers.
Sarah has asked, how long would you normally do that for?
So a full session is between 60 minutes to 75 minutes to an hour and a half. And the full session usually, a full session I would run in 2 hours, but sometimes that goes over. And my teachers breathe people for 3-4 hours. It really depends on the individual. Sometimes 40 minutes is enough. Sometimes an hour and a half is where a person needs to go. Yeah.
And that kind of lies in with the next question where Linda said, you know, it didn't feel long enough for her. Yeah. And yes. So, I mean, generally what happens is that when you do the sessions with Karina, you build it up and you to a point where you can then, I guess, breathe yourself.
Yes.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, I do. So what I often invite my clients to do is when they're, and I'd love to, you've got great questions, Linda, about the hyperventilating. I want to get to that in a second too, because it's really important. What I usually get clients, hang on, what was the question? Oh gosh, Karina.
The question was, how often do you recommend to do, how often do you recommend to do breath work? I probably didn't read it correctly.
Oh, you gave me a different question. Never mind. Okay, we're going to move forward. Sorry. How often do you recommend breath work? I would say 3 times a week is transformational, deeply transformational. I recommend once a week, no more than once a month. And that's if a person is going through a full journey, which is 10 sessions. So it really depends on how intense they're willing to go through a transformation. I have one client who did 10 breathes in a month, and that was her intention, was to completely unfurl and unravel, and that was really amazing for her. Generally, to people, I would say once a week to once a month, and that's usually if people sign up to a 10-pack, then we'll start week by week, and then it may be a week in between, or we space it out a little bit if that's needed. I'd love to answer the question about hyperventilating. Is that okay?
Please, go ahead.
Good question. So hyperventilating is not what we're doing, because okay, what's the difference? So the difference between rebirthing and hyperventilating is a sense of gentleness, and it's just got to do with the pace. So maybe the pace was a little bit quick, that made you feel like you're hyperventilating. But the idea is not to get the body into a stress response, which is what hyperventilating is. We don't want the body to go into a stress response. So every body is different, and we'd sort of create a metronome based on what your body says yes to. And yes, your body absolutely gets used to it. There's nothing, it's your breath. And the tingling that you'll feel is an increase of oxygen that's coming into your body, which is amazing. That's what we need. I'd love to remember what your original question was. Anyway, never mind.
In terms of Linda's, what is the purpose of shallow style breathing? That was
I had one before, yeah.
Okay.
So shallow, it's not shallow. What we invite you to do is start to explore the space of the lungs. And when I first started rebirthing, it was originally in the upper chest, but what I'm learning is that it's upper chest, back the heart, lower belly, side ribs. There's so much that we can breathe into that we just don't utilize. And eventually we want to breathe into the fullest of our capacity and draw in as much oxygen as we can. It's great for our heart rate. It's great for our lungs. It's great for exercise. My goodness, I don't think I've gone for a run in years, and I ran the other day and I felt really great when I shouldn't have probably felt so great.
I think people don't realize that breath work is actually three-dimensional breathing. And, you know, when you're in automatic breath, you are often, when we're in a stress response, we're using what I call clavicle breath. And we're sort of, you know, right just here at the top, and we're not really dropping the diaphragm down and allowing the full belly in. But when that three-dimensional breath work comes in, it's really expanding it into the back of your ribs as well. And we're just so unaware and unused to the idea that, you know, it's the back of our ribs and the side of our ribs and the front of our ribs and the bottom, everything's moving. And so, yeah, it transforms the way you start thinking about your breath, even when you're not doing a breathwork session.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I love Adele. Did anybody else get pain doing that? Really good question. Did anybody else get pain? I'd love for you to comment. Often it's a sensation that could be in your body already, and the breath is waking it up. It's probably energy that's ready to move. On a quantum level, it's probably something that's old and stuck that could be ready to move. I'd love to know whether or not you have had lower back problems in the past, or if this is something that's quite new. Yeah.
Stephanie had a heaviness in the pit of her stomach.
Yeah, that's quite normal, because the diaphragm is resting just above the stomach. And when the diaphragm relaxes, it's not used to doing that. And so there's often belly sensation is quite common. What did you experience, Taryn?
Oh, I love getting to that space in between. And I think, remind me tomorrow, that computer suddenly wanted to restart, of all times now. I really love, with the breath work, getting into that in-between space. And you gave a really brilliant analogy when we were doing the breath work. Was it the wings and a bird on a branch?
Yeah.
Do you want to share it with the ladies?
Yeah, so the bird is the heart. If we think of the bird of the heart, is the heart, and the lungs of the wings of the bird. So we're wanting to expand the wings of the bird so the heart can be free and fly. And a bird cannot hold on to the branch and fly at the same time. So we must let go. And sometimes letting go on a physical level is pain or sensation or emotion. And sometimes if any of you guys got a little emotional through that, that's really normal as well. And that's all part of the process of just letting go. Yeah.
My favorite part with the breath, when I visualize, is, you know, on that in breath, you know, my wings going up, and on that out breath, just pushing off of my branch and letting go of whatever it is. And it just feels so liberating, because, you know, we often are told, just let go, let it go, let it go. But this is an opportunity to actually physically release it from your body. And getting back to Adele, you know, in terms of, you know, the work that I've done with people, I've found that, you know, things are stored on an energetic level in the energetic body. And when you've got pain in an area, sometimes, you know, with all that breath work, it's stirring up the energy in that, you know, that area. And it's kind of like, you know, when it's like stuck bubble gum, you're just kind of scraping it off so that it can be released out through the breath. So it'd be very interesting. You know, I would love some feedback in the next couple of days, you know, how you're feeling in your back, because you've said that you do have back pain usually. Is that what it says I have? You know, that would be an interesting conversation to have and to follow up with you. What difference does it make with the out breath via nose or mouth, says Adele?
Yeah, cool. So the mouth breath or the mouth breathing is just stronger. And you can just try it if actually, no, don't. I was going to say give it a go, just like we did before. Mouth breathing, because we're not breathing through the sinuses, it's not going to activate the third eye, but also the sinuses have a way of slowing the breath down, whereas mouth breathing, it's and it will feel a little bit more like hyperventilation, and it's stimulating the sympathetic nervous response rather than, and that's the fight or flight freeze nervous response rather than parasympathetic, which is what we do through the nose. And also I feel like on a emotional level, when we hold tension in our sinuses, it's something that we have to breathe through. It's an agitation that we have to overcome when we breathe through the nose. And there's often quite a lot stored here because it's part of the face. It's a big part of who we are. Yeah.
Karina, I'm going to call it a day in terms of all the questions. I'm sorry we've run really, you know, we're extending into the time here. So what I might do is my VA is here, Christine. So she's going to be taking everyone who is online now, putting their names in a hat to do a draw. But in the meantime, Karina, can you let us know what we're drawing 5 prizes, what our prizes are for today?
Yeah, so I have a Instagram course. I put how do I explain this? I put a whole heap of IGTVs together and created a short course, and it's a 2-week breathwork journey. So it's something that you can do every single morning, just like we just did. And what you do is you'll breathe there's a meditation and then there's a breathwork practice, and those two together will start to awake your heart. It's super cool. It's an introduction to breathwork. So all the how-tos of how to breathe is there, how to modify your breathwork. I'm a part of that, you know, that Instagram account. So I interact with you guys as you're going through the course. It's a 2-week journey, but I give you access for 4 weeks. And what I've found, I've just finished one group, and they have really started to take breathwork into their every single day practice, which I strongly recommend. Even if, you know, we want to go so much deeper, there's benefits to breathing just for 10 minutes in the morning. So what I'm offering is 5 people to join the Spark. What you need to have is an Instagram account, and they're super easy to create, even if that's the only reason you're jumping on Instagram. Yeah, that's the only condition. That's the only place I have it online at the moment. So
super. Well, I'm going to, Christine, take you off mute to ask you ask to unmute. There we go. Hi, Christine.
Hi guys.
This is my gorgeous VA, and I don't know how I would make it life without her. She makes all the magic happen for me outside of breathwork.
hello, Christine.
Hello guys.
5 out.
Hello. So we have 5. The lucky 5 people would be Belinda.
Oh, Belinda!
Yay!
The second one goes to Ruta.
Ruta, fabulous.
Congrats. And then we have Andrea as well. Andrea.
Fabulous, Andrea.
Yay!
Perfect. The 4th prize goes to Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Congratulations.
With
And
those,
the 5th lucky winner would be Sarah.
fabulous. Thank you so much. Now, lovely ladies, what I might get you to do is if you could just private in the chat box, you can actually send me a private message. What you do is down the bottom it says chat, so you click on chat, it opens up. You can click on my name, or you can click on Christine's name, and then you can click on private with the buttons beside it, and just send your email address so that Karina can forward you the information and how to access it. So please do that. Ruth's one has already come through, thank you. But I just had a really lovely evening, and Karina, it's been a beautiful midweek reset. It always is wonderful to be guided. You've got a very solid presence, and I'm sure from judging from the response from all these beautiful ladies, I do believe that they've experienced a little bit of magic tonight, and I'm very grateful for that all. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Karina, for your time.
Thank you.
I am very grateful, and I know that you know, Bali is 2 hours behind, so I imagine it's dinner time for you now.
Just sunset, yeah, close to. Yeah, thank you all so much. This has been just such a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Taryn. I really appreciate it.
It's my absolute pleasure. My passion is really to, you know, and I guess that's part of the Gemini spirit, is to connect people with other people.
Wow.
There are so many wonderful wisdom weavers out there who are doing their thing, and you know, we're all different car makes, and we all need a different service agent to service our vehicle for our tire check and our oil change. And it's really important to be able to find the people and that can do the work for the right kind of vehicle. So this is just another way of people being able to connect in, have another tool in your toolbox for raising your own vibration. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes so that I can copy and paste these email addresses. So I will say goodnight to you all, and I will stop the recording now. And but you're welcome to, once I stop the recording, you're welcome to stay on and have a little chat if you want to.